Okay, this week is Parashat Tzav, Shabbos HaGadol also, B'ezras Hashem. So next week is Pesach, which means this will probably be the last shear in advance of Pesach, as far as I can see at this point in time. And since we're dealing now with Sefer V'Yikra, we're dealing with the Karbanis, so it's worthwhile to look a little bit at Karbanis and see what's going on behind them. Obviously, it's one of the most controversial things historically, whether we need it, don't need it, whether it was for the sake of weaning us away from what is Torah, idol worship, whether there's something very, very special, unique, the famous machlokas between the Rambam and the Ramban, that the Rambam says that really Karbanis are not at least people understand the Rambam to say that Karbanis are not the ideal way, but that's the way culture was at that point in time. The Jewish people before Har Sinai, the Mitzrayim, that they were involved in Avodah Zarah and idol worship, and this was a way to wean them away. Just like the Mishkan was a tikkun for the Egel HaZahav, because really there shouldn't have been a physical Mishkan, that really every Jew should have been his own personal tabernacle for Kodesh Baruch Hu. But the Egel HaZahav seemed to imply that we have difficulty relating to the abstract, and therefore we require something physical. So therefore Kodesh Baruch Hu says, here's how to do it in a kosher way, a kosher physical intermediary to help you connect to Hashem on the proper halachic level. And likewise, the Rambam seems to imply that Karbanis was a way, Kodesh Baruch Hu's way of saying that, okay, I'm not crazy about you sacrificing animals, but you have to get yourself out of Avodah Zarah. So here's a kosher way to do the Karbanis, at the same time be in the right line to connect to me. The Ramban says that that's not the case, and mentioned the fact that the Shem Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is used with respect to Karbanis, which seems to imply as extremely holy process, bringing a sacrifice. And he disagrees vehemently with the Rambam on that, and ascribing once again to the Rambam's influence, the shpa that he had from more progressive culture, so to speak, in the time. The Leshem explains a part of his explanation, which we'll get into the second half of it, that what the Rambam is saying is not so far from what Kabbalah says, if you understand the Rambam a specific way and understand Kabbalah a specific way. And the Leshem is always championing the Rambam wherever he can, trying to show how the Rambam basically is can be understood where he's controversial completely within the guideline of his Gerda Torah itself. That's the first part. Anyhow, but now he's talking about the Techis HaMeisim in the future, the resurrection of the dead, and we want to know whether or not Karbanis are still going to be relevant at that time as well. So he says, Od yesh be'inyan ha-Karbanis tam shein. There's a second reason for the Karbanis, yoter gavo, more elevated. V'hu l'tzarech hamtakis adinim la'afech midas adin l'rachamim. That there's this concept called din in creation, judgment, comes in the sphere of gvura. Gvura is strength. It's that which results in hester panim, and divine judgment, which results in everything from the Jewish people getting whatever is coming to them punishment-wise or consequence-wise, and even to an extreme. Esav is a function of gvura din, the Holocaust, Amalek, all of this, all evil is just the extreme extension of the concept of dinim in creation, and they can be very, very strong. And the point of the Karbanis are to sweeten them, to soften them. When you bring a carbon, the din that's hanging over the head of the Jewish people or the individual Jew is softened, it's sweetened by the fact that the carbon is being brought, right? Kikolam mitzias the nefesh habehemis v'chein adamim v'tzamech chineihem metokif adinim. Because there are four elements in creation. One, the four basically going from the bottom up, Domin, Somech, Chaya, and Medaber, the four different levels of reality, obviously corresponding to four elements as well. That Domin means the mineral world, and Somech is the vegetation world, and Chaya is the level of the animal, it's the animal world, and Medaber means a speaker is talking about the world of man. So the three levels of Domin, Somech, right, the two levels of Dam and Samech, the two levels of the mineral world and the vegetation world, they are from the Tokef Adinim, vavias. They're a function of the physicality of creation, which is a function of tzimtzum, constricting God's light, of Hester Panim. So it's a little Kabbalistic, obviously, but you can't get out of it. We talk about Karbanis, you can't help but get Kabbalistic, because the entire thing is Kabbalistic, which is why we don't connect, we don't relate to a prophet, because the basis of all of it is Kabbalistic. Right? So it's V'chein hadam v'tzomech hinei hemet vavias. They're from the mineral world, which is physical, and the vegetation world, which is also like a physical, inanimate reality. They're a function of tzimtzum, a function of Hester Panim, God, the light of Hashem being constricted from the spiritual reality eventually to become the physical reality. They're a function of all of that, right? And he says, therefore, when you sacrifice these elements to Hashem, mamtik esadinim umivasmam, and you sweeten them, and you season, right? So therefore, when you are using the physical world in such a way, in such a holy way, you're taking the physical world, which as a result of dinim, and you're now using it for the sake of coming closer to a Kodesh Baruch Hu, to Hashem. So that's called a sweetening, or a what's the word? Fragrancing of the dinim, making them smell nicer, spiritually speaking. Who are you? Right? Because when Adam did the chet of the Eitz Das Tov Ra, he ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, he caused a separation of the three lower worlds that that's the main worlds that we live in, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, from Atzilus, which is a completely spiritual reality. They used to be connected together before the chet in Gan Eden, and therefore Gan Eden was an extremely high level of existence, spiritually speaking. And when he ate from the Eitz Das Tov Ra, he caused a separation, because that's what happens when a person is a chet. He moves away from Hashem. He becomes more physical as a result of it in the end, right? So therefore, they resulted from the separation. So therefore, by bringing them, by being makriv them and offering them, so that's going to result in bringing the worlds closer together once again, on some level, at least on a personal, individual level. As it says in Parashas Nusav, and now he includes also the third level, Chai, as well, that these kinefesh behemoths who mahabria, because the soul of an animal comes from the level of bria, but tzomech meyetzira, and tzomech comes from the world of yetzira, and domim is from the level of asiyah, the three lower worlds, correspondingly. V'nase kol zeh aidei shnifradu matzilus nisrachaku memekara, v'nasu ledin kashim, v'nis chashchu v'nis avu. Right, so Adam did the chet. He caused these three levels of Asiyah, Yetzirah, and Bria to move away from Atzilus, a much higher level of spiritual existence, which is completely ruchani, completely spiritual. And the result was the physicalization of creation, which results in the mineral world, in the lowest level of all, and results in the vegetation world, a level up, but still not an animal level. Then finally, the nefesh of the animal world, which has become solid, so to speak, because of the chet. So therefore, by bringing these three things, as he says elsewhere, that the domim is the salt used in the sacrifice, which is mandatory, and you have the wood, which is used on the altar to burn the animal, which is the tzomeach, that's the vegetation, and then of course the animal itself, and the soul that's being offered of the animal, that's the level of bria. So by doing this for the sake of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, for the sake of coming close to Hashem, that results in a rectification of creation. So therefore, when a person brings these sacrifices on the mizbeach, right? So he's mispasmim. He makes it more fragrant. The dinim. When he sraf the color of yosam, and it burns up and destroys their thickness, their physical aspect. In other words, it's returning them back to their spiritual state. Because as long as they're physical, they're stuck down here in that physical state post-sin, right? But now, by actually being makriv them, it's a remarkable concept. By being makriv them, you're freeing them. You're actually freeing them. And you're causing them to be at the original state pre-chet. To us, it looks like destruction. But what's going on over here is a rectification. By the fire of the mizbech, and as a result of that, they're able to ascend, they become free, just like a person who dies.